A tariff makes something more expensive. A missing magnet can make it impossible. That is the part of the trade war most people missed. Because while everyone was arguing about tariffs, China was holding something much quieter, much smaller, and possibly much more powerful: the tiny metals inside the machines that run the modern world. If you stay until the end, you'll understand why the U.S. China trade war was never just about who pays a tax at the border. It was about who controls the invisible ingredients inside electric cars, fighter jets, wind turbines, AI data centers, missiles, smartphones, and the factories that make them. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Daniel Reed, and this is Plain Econ, the channel where we make economics simple, without the jargon. We break down inflation, interest rates, debt, markets, central banks, and the global economy in a way that actually makes sense. So if you want to understand the forces shaping your money, your job, your country, and the world around you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Plain Econ. Now, let's get into it. For years, the trade war was sold to the public as a tariff story. America puts tariffs on Chinese goods. China responds with tariffs of its own. Prices go up. Companies panic. Politicians argue about who is paying. And that part matters. Tariffs really do change prices. They really do hurt businesses. They really do shift supply chains. But tariffs are the loud part of the story. The quiet part is much more interesting. Because in a modern economy, the real power is not always in the final product. It is in the choke point, the one tiny input that everything else depends on. And in this trade war, one of the biggest choke points was rare earth metals, which is already a misleading name. Rare earths are not actually that rare. They are not like gold. They are not magic rocks that only exist under one mountain in China. The problem is much more annoying than that. Rare earths are spread out, chemically similar, difficult to separate, expensive to process, and often dirty to refine. So the challenge is not simply finding the rock. The challenge is turning that rock into the exact material a factory is certified to use. That is why this story is not really mine versus mine. It is mine to magnet, and that chain is long. First, you mine the ore. Then you concentrate it. Then you chemically separate it. Then you refine it into oxides. Then you turn those oxides into metals. Then metals become alloys. Then alloys become magnets. Then those magnets go into motors, generators, drones, cars, turbines, weapons, electronics, and industrial machines. And the country that controls the middle of that chain controls much more than dirt. It controls the permission slip for modern manufacturing. According to the International Energy Agency, in 2024, China had about 60% of global mined production of magnet rare earths. That is already a lot. But mining is not the scary number. The scary number is what happens next. China had about 91% of global refined output, and about 94% of sintered permanent magnet production. Think about that. The farther you move from rock toward useful industrial product, the more concentrated the supply chain becomes. So when people say, why doesn't America just mine its own rare earths? They are skipping the hard part. The United States does mine rare earths. The U.S. Geological Survey says the U.S. produced an estimated 51,000 tons of rare earth oxide in mineral concentrates in 2025. But a mine is not a magnet factory, and a pile of mineral concentrate does not help you if the missing step is separation, refining, alloying, or magnet production. This is why China's retaliation was so clever. The US used tariffs and chip controls. China did not just respond with tariffs. China reached into the supply chain and squeezed the tiny inputs behind the expensive machines. On April 4, 2025, China placed export controls on several medium and heavy rare earth items, including names most people never hear: samarium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, lutetium, scandium, and yttrium. Those names sound obscure. That is the point. The most important parts of the global economy often sound boring until they disappear. Dysprosium and terbium help permanent magnets keep their strength under heat. That matters in electric motors, high-performance machines, and advanced manufacturing. Yttrium is used in ceramics, lasers, phosphors, and heat-resistant applications. Samarium cobalt magnets can work in harsh conditions where ordinary magnets fail. These are not the metals you brag about owning. They are the metals you only notice when the machine stops working. And that is what makes them powerful. A tariff is visible. A tariff gets a headline. A tariff can be debated on television. But an export license? That is quieter. It does not need to ban everything. It does not need to stop every shipment. It can slow approvals. It can separate civilian uses from military uses. It can make companies unsure whether next month's supply will arrive. And uncertainty is expensive. Reuters reported in May 2026 that exports of yttrium, dysprosium, and terbium were still down around 50% from before China's controls, even though total rare earth export volumes had largely recovered. That is one of the most important details in the whole story. The headline number can look normal while the strategic bottleneck is still tight. Imagine a grocery store saying, "Our shelves are full, but the baby formula aisle is empty." That is the rare earth story. Total exports can recover, but the exact materials needed for the exact high-performance use can still be constrained. And when that happens, prices move violently. Reuters reported that prices outside China for dysprosium and terbium rose 4 to 5 times, while yttrium rose by about 140 times. Magnets became 1.5 to 3 times more expensive than before the controls. So yes, tariffs can raise prices. But export controls can create something even more dangerous: scarcity. And scarcity changes behavior. Factories stockpile. Governments panic. Defense contractors look for backup suppliers. Automakers worry about motors. Chip makers worry about specialized materials. Investors start chasing rare earth projects. And suddenly, the trade war is no longer about cheap imports. It is about industrial survival. If this video is making you look at the trade war differently, hit the like button. It helps the channel, but more importantly, it tells YouTube that people actually want economic explanations that go deeper than the headline. Now here is where the story gets even bigger. Rare earths are not only about electric vehicles or wind turbines. They are also about defense. The U.S. Department of Defense says rare earth permanent magnets are used in the F-35, Virginia and Columbia-class submarines, unmanned aerial vehicles, Tomahawk missiles, radar systems, Predator drones, and JDAM smart bombs. And the quantities are not tiny. The Department of Defense says an F-35 requires more than 900 pounds of rare earth elements. An Arleigh Burke destroyer requires 5,200 pounds. A Virginia-class submarine needs 9,200 pounds. Now combine that with a strange paradox from the Government Accountability Office. The Department of Defense uses less than 0.1% of global rare earth demand. Less than 0.1%. That sounds irrelevant. But the GAO also says a supply disruption could have a high potential for harm to U.S. national security. That is the entire rare earth problem in one sentence. The quantity can be tiny. The consequence can be enormous. Because if the missing material is inside the guidance system, the motor, the radar, or the turbine blade, then it does not matter that the military only uses a small share of the market. What matters is whether the part can be made. This is why the trade war became a fight between America's chip choke point and China's magnet choke point. The U.S. has tried to limit China's access to advanced AI chips and semiconductor technology. China has shown that it can make access to key industrial materials uncertain. One side controls some of the brains. The other controls some of the bones and muscles. And that is why the old story of globalization feels outdated. The old story was simple. Make products wherever it is cheapest. The new story is harsher. Make products wherever the choke points cannot be used against you. That is why tariffs were never the full story. Tariffs are a surface-level weapon. They punish trade after a product exists. Rare earth controls hit before the product exists. They attack the recipe. They attack the supply chain. They attack the hidden dependency. And this brings us to the May 2026 U.S. China talks. The public framing was about repairing trade. After years of tariffs, supply chain shifts, and economic damage, the two sides wanted to lower the temperature. The White House said China would address U.S. concerns about rare earths and other critical minerals, including concerns around processing equipment and technology. That sounds like progress, but listen carefully to the wording. Address concerns is not the same as remove controls. It is not the same as give up leverage. It is not the same as the problem is solved. S&P Global reported that rare earths were not even mentioned in China's own follow-up summary of the summit. That gap matters, because if the weapon is a tariff, you can see the tariff rate. If the weapon is an export license, how do you know it has been disarmed? This is the genius and the danger of the rare earth choke point. It can be turned up or down without looking like a full embargo. It can pressure one sector more than another. It can create uncertainty without creating a clean headline. And in a world built on just-in-time supply chains, uncertainty is enough. Now, to be fair, China's leverage is not costless. Every time China uses rare earths as a weapon, it gives other countries a reason to build alternatives. The US, Europe, Japan, Australia, and others are all trying to diversify supply chains. But diversification is slow. You cannot build chemistry expertise, environmental permits, processing plants, magnet factories, supplier trust, and industrial qualification overnight. The IEA estimates that even with planned projects, diversified regions outside China would still fall short in refining and magnet manufacturing by 2035. And the IEA says meeting demand outside the dominant supplier would require around $60 billion of investment over the next decade. That is the part politicians do not like to say out loud. Independence is expensive. Resilience is expensive. Clean processing is expensive. And if consumers and companies only want the cheapest possible input, they often end up buying from the choke point again. So the real question is not, can the West mine rare earths? The real question is the West willing to pay for a full supply chain that is more expensive, more redundant, and less fragile? Because that is what resilience means. It means paying extra before the crisis so you are not desperate during the crisis. And this is the bigger lesson. The next trade war may not look like a tax table. It may look like a spreadsheet of obscure materials: dysprosium, terbium, yttrium, scandium, neodymium, indium. Names that sound small, but sit under trillions of dollars of production. The IEA estimates that if rare earth export controls were fully implemented, the downstream production at risk outside China could reach $6.5 trillion per year. That number is so large it almost stops feeling real, but the idea is simple. Modern economies are built on small things that almost nobody understands: a tiny chip, a tiny magnet, a tiny mineral input, a tiny license approval, a tiny component in a giant machine. And when that tiny thing is controlled by one country, it becomes geopolitical power. So no, the trade war was not only about tariffs. Tariffs were the part designed for voters. Rare earths were the part designed for factories. Tariffs decide what something costs. Tiny metals decide whether it can exist. And if you understand that, you understand the new economy much better than most headlines do. Because the countries that control the boring inputs may end up controlling the exciting future. AI, electric vehicles, drones, defense, robotics, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, all of it depends on supply chains that are much more fragile than they look. So the next time you hear a politician talk about tariffs, ask a deeper question. Not just who pays the tax, ask who controls the choke point, because that is where the real power is hiding. If you found this useful, like the video and subscribe to Plain Econ. We're building a channel for people who want to understand the forces shaping the economy without needing a PhD or a Wall Street job. And if you want to keep going, watch the next video on screen now, because the same logic behind rare earths is showing up everywhere: energy, chips, debt, currencies, and the future of global power.